Marijuana is now legal in Canada.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
Canada became just the second country in the world and the first big country to legalize marijuana. The drug was available in licensed retail shops across the broad northern country starting October 17th. Hi everyone, I'm Jeff, and you are listening to Plain English, the best podcast for practicing English online. JR is the producer in Mexico, and this is episode number 98 for Monday, October 29th, 2018. You can read a transcript of this program at plainenglish.com/98. As always, those transcripts include instant translations of about 100 words and phrases from English to Portuguese, Spanish, French, Chinese, Japanese, and Italian. I also want to remind you that there are additional learning resources available by joining our email list. Just for signing up, I'll send you some of my favorite tips for practicing English, and most of them are free. You'll also get episode summaries with bonus vocabulary words and links to English articles about the main topic. You can sign up for that at plainenglish.com/mail, plainenglish.com/mail. Ready to get started? When the clock struck midnight on October 17th, adults all across Canada were for the first time legally allowed to buy and possess up to 30 grams of marijuana. When the moment arrived, many Canadians were out celebrating. In Toronto, they celebrated with a bud drop, similar to the famous ball drop in New York on Times Square on New Year's Eve. This time, a green bud of cannabis plant dropped down instead. Radio stations aired countdowns, and people lined up for hours outside marijuana shops before they opened their doors. And with that, Canada became the world's first large economy to legalize marijuana, joining only tiny Uruguay, which legalized the drug in 2013. That is likely to come as good news for the approximately 5 million Canadians who used cannabis last year. That's about 1 in 6 adults in Canada, and they averaged about 20 grams each per year. The legalization is expected to be a boon for tourism, especially from visitors from Canada's southern neighbor, where cannabis is still broadly illegal. The new law says that adults can possess and share with others up to 30 grams of dried cannabis, which is about equal to 60 regular-size joints. The individual Canadian provinces will set the legal age. In Alberta and Quebec, the legal age is 18. In the rest of the country, you'll have to be 19. Marijuana will be legally available in licensed retail shops or through official government distributors. No licensed retailer near you? No problem. You will be permitted to grow up to 4 plants at home. You can also order it online from a government store. Stores can sell pre-rolled joints like cigarettes and cannabis oil. Cannabis oil is a liquid extract that comes from steaming cannabis plants. The oil is said to promote sleep and reduce anxiety and depression. However, other products like edibles, things you can eat, they will have to wait a year. Products like pot-infused candy, peanut butter, and chocolate will be legal starting next year. Local police will have to bear the burden of enforcing the new laws. Sure, marijuana use is now legal, but it's legal in a regulated industry. Lots of rules. So local authorities now have to deal with issues like zoning, business licensing, and making rules around when and where it can be consumed in public. Some cities have chosen not to allow any legal pot shops within their borders. In Ontario, which includes the nation's largest city, Toronto, you can generally smoke it wherever you can already smoke a cigarette. But in other provinces, public consumption will not be allowed. Ontario, by the way, is dragging its feet. That is the only province without any retail shops open yet. Now that marijuana is legalized, what will happen to the illegal trade, that underground business that served the 5 million Canadians before legalization? It will probably take a while for the black market to die down. One reason Canada legalized marijuana is to tamp down the illegal market, keep marijuana out of the hands of minors, and curb marijuana-related crime. But the black market is large and stabilized. The supply chains and distribution are already in place, if imperfect, and the risk to consumers of buying in the black market is relatively low now, especially now that they can't be punished for possession. So, for those reasons, it will probably take years for the network of legal shops to ramp up to a size that can actually serve the market. Over time, the government hopes that the higher quality and lower risk of legal marijuana will win over consumers who had been getting their fix in the illegal market before. The legal industry is expected to be worth about 6.5 billion Canadian dollars after it ramps up. Big corporations are hoping to get in on the action. Coca-Cola and Constellation Brands, which owns beer, wine, and spirits brands, including Corona, they have all started exploring the idea of selling beverages infused with marijuana or its extracts. Here's one potential additional benefit: research. Since marijuana is illegal almost everywhere in the world, it's been hard for researchers to study its effects on the human body. Well, now that it's legal, researchers will have a broader pool of people to study for things like the drug's effect on mental health, pregnancy, pain, even impairment while driving. Though the Canadian public is broadly supportive of legalization, it does not come without concerns. The Canadian Medical Association Journal said that this was an uncontrolled experiment that put the profits of marijuana producers ahead of the health of Canadians. Even some advocates of legalization want to make sure that all adult users understand the risks, specifically that there is the risk of addiction and that it could aggravate existing mental health conditions. There is also the sticky legal issue of people who are in jail for possessing cannabis back when it was illegal. The Canadian government is allowing people to apply for pardons if they were sentenced to jail for having possessed marijuana in the past. So will Canada be the leader among large economies, or will the rest of the world maintain its prohibition on marijuana? It might depend on the implementation. If Canada can show that it can establish an orderly set of regulations, and if society doesn't totally collapse, then perhaps other countries might follow suit. So what do all of you think? I'd love to hear your opinions and share them on a future episode. Send me an email to Jeff, Jeff, at plainenglish.com, or send me a note on Facebook or Twitter under the username Plain English Pod. Time to say hello and thank you to a few listeners. Marcus from Brazil is in the audience. He's living in Connecticut now, and he says he starts his day listening to Plain English. We had a nice chat by email. I actually grew up in the small northeastern state of Connecticut, so our chat by email brought back some good memories of where I grew up. Clarissa and Raul both left us nice reviews on Facebook, so thank you both for that. Raul says he's been with us a couple of months, so great to have you along, Raul and Clarissa. I also want to say hi to Leonardo and Pima for sending notes to me this week. JR and I both love hearing from listeners, so don't be shy about getting in touch. Plain English Pod on Facebook and Twitter. There were a lot of great words in today's episode, and if you were listening closely, you might have heard two that we've featured before. The first one, to get your fix, was the featured expression the first time we discussed marijuana legalization way back in episode 18. The second one was follow suit, which was the expression we talked about in episode 84 not too long ago. So if you'd like to learn more about those expressions, just go to plainenglish.com/18 and plainenglish.com/84 to listen to those episodes. But the phrasal verb I'd like to share with you today is ramp up. A ramp is like an inclined path. So sometimes instead of stairs, you'll see a ramp where you can push a wheelchair. But to ramp up means to increase something from a low base. Usually, but not always, in the context of business or commerce. In Canada, the legal marijuana industry needs to ramp up production. It's currently at a low base. The lowest possible, right? It's starting from scratch, starting from nothing. It needs to be able to grow to serve the market. But then eventually, it will get big enough and it will stabilize. Eventually, it won't need to grow quite so fast. So it needs to get bigger this year, bigger next year, bigger the year after that, and then maybe it can stabilize or stop growing so quickly. And that couple of years in which it's getting bigger and bigger, you would say it is ramping up. I'll give you a couple of other examples. I'm starting a new project at work, but it's been going slowly at first. There hasn't been a lot to do, but starting in the next couple of weeks, it's going to get really busy. So we need to ramp up in the next few weeks. We started with just 1 or 2 people working a day or 2 a week on it, but eventually we'll have about 4 of us working full-time on the project. We're still ramping up. We are going to have congressional elections here in November, about a week from now, and candidates have been ramping up their television advertising for that important final month of the campaign. They've been increasing their spending week after week so that it reaches its maximum right before people go and vote. What else? Oh, a big thing here is that online retailers and shipping companies like FedEx and UPS, they ramp up their hiring in the fall so they can handle all the holiday season online shopping. Big companies like Amazon.com, UPS, FedEx, and traditional retailers all ramp up their hiring around October so they have enough trained workers to handle the crush of business in November and December. Hey, don't forget that Plain English listeners can get a free audiobook just by signing up for a free trial membership to Audible. Audiobooks are a way to test your listening comprehension with speech at a bit faster pace than what we have here. If you pick a book you already know, then you don't have to worry so much about understanding the story. You can concentrate more on picking up the words. If that sounds like it might be of interest, check out plainenglish.com/book, B-O-O-K, and you can read about the free trial membership to Audible. That's all for today. Yesterday was the big election in Brazil, so we'll talk about that on Thursday's episode, which will be number 99. I hope you all have a great week. JR and I will see you right back here on Thursday.